What I'm going to do is, because we're talking about 1 hour plus minus, I'm going to divide this up half into what I call revolutionary Islam and half into evolutionary Islam. Now really what I need is about 2-3 hours for each one because there's so much information. What I want to start with is, my wife Rachel is a Jewish woman from Egypt. I'm a Jewish person from America. Now, because I'm from America and left America at age 19, I was educated in America, and I think like you. I think like a Christian. My wife Rachel was born and raised in Islamic Egypt, so my wife is Jewish, but she thinks like a Muslim. She understands them. For the last 30 years, my wife just retired from her work at the radio. She was an intelligence gatherer for the Israeli government. She would monitor what they were saying in Arabic. And I'm going to give you some of the quotes tonight throughout the message. But the first quote, I think, is the one that is most important for you. Rachel picked up a broadcast 30 years ago. She picked up the same broadcast a few months ago. It was a little different, though. Same broadcast, but with a slightly different message. 30 years ago, the Saudis were saying, even if it takes us 150 years, we're going to make America a Muslim country. That was 30 years ago. Now, 30 years later, the Saudis come out and say, we thought it was going to take us 150 years to make America Muslim. We were wrong. It's only going to take us 30 years. So instead of 150 years, 30 years. 30 years is in our lifetime. The plan is to make America a Muslim country. Now I shared this in Tyler. This is what we call the evolutionary Islam. In other words, the bringing in of Syrian refugees, Afghan refugees, refugees from different Islamic countries, and we haven't seen anything yet. And so some of this, how many people have heard the word eschatology? Okay, so I speak mostly in churches that are interested in eschatology. And I'm going to share things that will be very scary to you. The question is my message tonight an inoculation, a vaccination for you guys to have a Christian revival or not? I'm a Jew who's telling you you have to have a Christian revival in all denominations. Amen. Otherwise this country is sunk. I was, like I said, born in 1949 in the US. I graduated high school in Great Neck, New York. In my senior year, 1965-66, we studied a book called Democracy in America by Stephen Emerson. How many people remember Stephen Emerson, Democracy in America? So it seems like you didn't read it. It's a very long book. It's a very boring book, but it's about Alexis de Tocqueville, a Frenchman, who came to America in 1820 during the time of President Jackson. And after 14 years, he wrote his book. It's like memoirs of his travels around the early United States and his impressions of this new people called the Americans. And he said, like I said, the book's very long, very boring. President Eisenhower summarized the book in 2 sentences. He said, according to Alexis de Tocqueville, America will be the greatest country on earth because the American people are good people and their pulpits are on fire for the Lord. You have to remember, American democracy stems from its Christianity, unlike the European Christianity, which is suppressing democracy. Conversely, when America's pulpits will no longer be on fire for the Lord, America will lose its preeminence in the world. I'm afraid that's the situation today. America's pulpits are losing their fire for the Lord. Okay. Now, I want to share something which I've heard in churches. It's also a Jewish teaching. It's in the Old Testament and Proverbs. It's also in the New Testament. It says that the foolishness of the Lord is greater than the wisdom of man. How many people have heard that? I'm sure you've heard it in church. At first, I didn't like it. Jewish people are very wisdom-oriented people. But I came to the conclusion that that's true. And you know, there was a German philosopher 200 years ago by the name of Heinrich Heine. How many people heard of Heinrich Heine? He was a philosopher 200 years ago in Germany, and there was no communism at the time, there was no Putin, but you had the czars. And Heinrich Heine in Germany, he said the world has to choose between the foolishness of the Americans and the despotism and tyranny of the Russians. Has anything changed in 200 years? Okay, now, Winston Churchill in World War II used to say about the United States, America always does the right thing after it has exhausted all the other possible alternatives. And so the question that is asked, how is it if America is so foolish, how can it be that America is world power number one? And the answer, in my opinion, is because if you're foolish in the Lord. And if you're foolish in the Lord, nobody can defeat you. This is my faith. I live in Israel. I'm forming a Judeo-Christian party based on what America used to be. And I hope America readopts it. You know, in the 1960s, I think began the downfall of Christianity in America. They took prayer out of schools. 73, Roe versus Wade, you know, taking out the 10 Commandments from the courthouses. There has been a steady downhill for Christianity in this country. President Truman coined the term Judeo-Christian America. Because in 1948, you know, he won because of the Jews. I don't know if you remember Thomas Dewey, you know, and Truman was holding up the newspaper. Dewey wins by 100,000 votes. Because Truman recognized the Jewish state of Israel in May 48, in November 48, all the Jews voted for Harry Truman, and he won. So there was this mantra about such Jewish control of the media. So it's not true, but at that time it helped Truman win. The term Judeo-Christian America came about under Eisenhower, right after that. It was the Republican Eisenhower that said, I'm going to also try to get close to the Jews. I was born in '49. I grew up in Judeo-Christian America. The Christians were a quarter of a billion. The Jews were 6 million, so we're number 2. There were no Muslims. I know where Obama says there were Muslims here from the first day. I don't know where he found them, but there were Jews here from the first day. Could be they were on the slave ships, yes. But you know, the Jews were in Charleston, Savannah, Providence, Rhode Island, New Amsterdam under the Dutch, and then New York. I don't know if you know this, but in the American Revolutionary War, 500 Jews stood bivouac on Christmas Day so that the Christians could pray. 500 Jewish revolutionary soldiers. And the Jews went home, Yom Kippur, 1777, to bring George Washington all their gold to save the American Revolution. Jews were here from the first day. I don't want to go into all these historic facts. I moved to Israel in 1968. In 1970, I didn't even know about this till my research when I came back, there were 100,000 Muslims in America. So 100,000 Muslims, 6 million Jews. Jews are still number 2. America's a Judeo-Christian country. And I know that there are different estimates as to exactly how many Muslims there are in America. I say that there are between 20 and 30 million Muslims in America, as compared to 6 million Jews. Jews are married to Christians, 80%, so it's about 10 million Jews and Christians as a unit, and 20 to 30 million Muslims. So President Obama was 100% correct in his inaugural address, January 2009, when he said that America today is a Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu country. America is no longer Judeo-Christian. Something has changed. And, you know, I could talk to you about what happened in Paris a week ago. I could talk to you about terrorism all over the world, the horrible things that ISIS, Boko Haram, all these different organizations are doing. I could talk about 9/11. I have it in all my books.